don't ask me about basketball. And this was illegal defense, and then they took that away, and so then I didn't know any calls. But I know how to run things. I know how to run complicated things, things that are needing a lot of fast-paced decision-making, which is why I could do that job when we went to the finals with the Supersonics back in 1996. So that's where we are. What's my program?
I'm going to give you the, as soon as I get my mic on here. So you're going to do, you agreed to come in and do 10 minutes. And then Cheyenne is going to ask you some questions, and if we have time, we're going to go ahead and ask a couple of questions. A couple questions from the audience. How many did I say? Okay, all right. Because we're on a time schedule, I know you're tight. I do thank you for coming here, all right? I also want to announce that your opponent, Erica Evans, did show up this morning, and the reason why she's not here with you, unlike the other two incidents we had, is that she did have a prior engagement. She called me when we first announced it, and she said that, and I told her to come down. So I do have to give her credit for that. So you have the floor. You are the city attorney. Cheyenne, I know, has got some questions, and she's going to knock you around a little bit, but I think you can handle it. I met you when you had a boot on your leg, so I think you're pretty tough, all right?
I do have a pretty big mental pain cave. I'm a CrossFitter, and I think it's important, because you have to know that I am not a quitter on our city. Who was living here in the city in 2021? Yeah. Okay. And how many of you know people who moved away from our city? Yeah. And how many of you heard a lot of people complaining at that same time? Yeah. I was like, I'm sick of complaining in my own head about how things are going, and I'm not going to move away. I've lived in Seattle for 30 years. So what is an alternative of what I can do? It was use my skill set to help the problems in our city, which to me was public safety was item number one. I'm a mom, I have a son and a daughter, and really the only conversations that was taking over my parenting was what was happening on the streets of Seattle. So when bad policy of the previous decrim decade took over my parenting conversations with my children when they were 8 and 10 years old, I said, this is not acceptable to me anymore. What can I do besides complain and move away? And it was to take action and to run for this office. So, thank you. So as said, I'm the first woman, and then obviously the first mom to hold this role. I'm the 10th elected city attorney in the history of our city. And so really what I bring is a lot of innovation and a lot of creativity and a lot of private sector experience into our government, which is absolutely needed in our city. We do not need somebody who is associated with my predecessor of 12 years beforehand, where we got to the place that we are now, and we're trying to dig out from that. We are making headway, but we do not need to go back to that time period. In my early life, what you did not say, Cesar, is my first call that I wanted to do as a young adult was to go into crisis relief. I wanted to work in refugee work, go into natural disaster areas where everybody who could physically leave could, or financially leave could, and the people that were left were really the most vulnerable. I knew those were my spaces to go into personally, and so again, that's what Seattle felt like to me in 2021. And that's what politics basically feels like. People ask, like, why in the world would you do this? But again, what is the cost to me? A little bit of bluster and a little bit of some people complaining. But if I'm coming in to make change, that's part of the expectation that I signed up for. Some people are going to get their feathers ruffled, but that's okay, because we do need to make sure we are changing our city for the better, which is to make sure we are enforcing our laws. I am not a lawmaker, but I can propose them. I have done so, and our public safety focused city council has enacted everything I've proposed, and that is including how we can advance and improve on public safety strategies beyond just law enforcement. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about maybe what you heard a little bit earlier. Some people are saying, oh, she's got complaints or there's lawsuits about her actions that she's taking. But again, the reason why I'm doing some of the things I'm doing is on purpose. I'm very confident in the decisions I'm making. I do not run my office in a way except for what is the best approach we can take for public safety. And that is using, again, creativity. initiating civil strategies that we can do, suing corporations when they are adding to the difficulties we have from a public safety standpoint. I sued Kia and Hyundai because they were contributing, in my opinion, to the nuisance of car theft. Yes, we prosecute people who steal cars, but they were also adding cars to our area that were so susceptible to being stolen. So they need to be a part of that correction with us. We continue to do enforcement and prosecution, but there has to be something additional than we keep hiring police officers and expect them to solve all the crime. We need people to contribute at every level. When I talk about what I've done so far and why it's important for me to have a second term, I want to also talk about my High Utilizer Initiative, which I started in March of 2022. And I'll give you a forecast if you need to recall what it was like when I took office. I did take over when there was 5,000 cases that were just left to languish from my predecessor's administration. And it was not just for COVID, it was also just how things were being run. And I brought data transparency to the office to show you, the public, what is going on in the city attorney's office, so I can make best decisions, and you and me can hold myself accountable, so we know what's going on. And so by looking at that data, we were able to show that 118 people were responsible for over 2,400 police referrals to my office. And a police referral, I say it, that's a police report, so it might have 1 crime, 10 crimes. I just measure it by police referral. So 118 people, 2,400 referrals. That is a lot of criminal activity for not a lot of people. So by focusing on those individuals who are using up a lot of our system resources and our response that we have in our system, we were able to reduce those referrals. And we have projected, by focusing on those people, updating our data quarterly, working with the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, we have reduced 3,000 referrals that we would have gotten from our Seattle police officers who endorsed me and back me if we had not been doing that approach. By doing that, we have doubled the retail theft prosecution that was done from the previous administration. Why is that important? Because we are trying to make sure we keep economic vitality in every neighborhood. I do not want to see any more neighborhoods lose a pharmacy, lose a grocery store, lose any retail core, even a large anchor tenant. We need large anchor tenants to then foster the vitality of small business around those places. Every neighborhood deserves to have economic vitality where they can have jobs and access to service and goods. And by doubling retail theft, we are saying you cannot come to Seattle and avoid consequences. I will find out what you're doing, and I will come and enforce the law, because I partner with our police officers. They know that I depend on their work. They need to do absolutely great work. We are now outside of our consent decree. It's fantastic. We probably have one of the best police forces in the country. And so by going and partnering with them, so they know I am then taking up the work. I talk about it like a track relay team. They are the first leg. I can't do anything unless and until I get that referral from them. And then I'm the second leg of that relay team, and I need to do my work so that the system as a whole can function for all of us, so you don't have to be the frontline workers responding to criminal activity as it comes to your doorway. Okay, I will move to why I'm so hopeful about having a second term. Why I'm spending my Saturday afternoon leaving my kiddos at home to do their homework or whatever it is that they might be doing. I think my son was doing Minecraft when I left. But it's about what else can we do? And again, I'm wanting to bring innovation and strategies that we can do to improve public safety beyond the basics of what we got. Our basics have to function, which is why I'm building those partnerships to make the system function. I go on ride-alongs with our police officers. 2 weeks ago, I went on a DUI emphasis ride-along from 6 p.m. on a Friday night to 3 a.m. on Saturday morning, because I wanted to see the bars close. And the officers are saying, "You don't have to be out here, Ann." I'm thinking, absolutely, I need to be out here. I want to know when the work enters the system, what it's like, so I know it from my perspective, what I can do to help enhance that. Because if we are going to bring the next biggest impact to public safety for the biggest number of people, it is about DUI prosecution, because our backlog at the state toxicology lab, the only lab allowed by state law to do the test results, is a backlog of 571 days. So I cannot prosecute things most of the time because it's drugs. DUIs, most of it is drugs, not alcohol. And so it takes me, I'm right now prosecuting things from 2023. Wow. And so if we want to make it safer for all of our loved ones, when they go to work, when they go to school, when we are enjoying the Mariners game, we need to be working on DUI. And I proposed a bipartisan bill last legislative session. It didn't get through. I want to keep on it for this next session because that is the biggest place that I need to make a difference. I have a plan. I hear critics by my opponent that I'm slow to do the DUI prosecution. That's because I understand what the system needs, which is an overhaul at the state level, which is what I intend to continue to do.
He answered a lot of my questions that I have, so I'm going to keep this really short to give the room an opportunity to ask questions. So I'm going to ask you about the stay out of drug area, the SOTA and similar exclusion zone policies with mixed results, right? So what specific evidence do you rely on to believe these zones will not or will make our city safer, and how would you measure success? What metrics would you trigger to revisit or repeal the policy?
Well, I will not repeal those laws. They were passed 8-1 by our city council a year ago, October of 2024. So when we hear politicians who say they don't have to follow the law, right? Like we hear people saying that, I think, at a lot of levels. I don't think that's what we should be hearing from somebody who's leading the law department for the city of Seattle. These laws were put in by our lawmakers 8-1, stay out of drug area and stay out of area of prostitution. It was signed by our mayor. That is the law of our city. And the reason why those are important is because those zones in specific district council areas, they encompass altogether less than 1/2% of the 83 square miles of our city. I'll say that again, less than 1/2% of the 83 square miles. Some people want to call them the banishment zones. They're very tailored because we are trying to encourage the economic vitality of the neighborhoods where drug markets are so entrenched. And we're trying to protect public spaces so all of us can walk freely through those areas and not feel that our safety is at risk. The underlying drug use and possession is we're trying to get people into treatment, and the SOTA is to protect public spaces. Same with the stay out of area of prostitution. As the first woman, as I said, as a mother, not talking about women and girls who are predominantly the most ones that are trafficked up in the North End. I live in the North End. By not talking about it, we are ignoring those women and girls. So I absolutely think we need to include that.
So upstream interventions can take years. What specific enforceable action will you take in the first 90 days to address visible encampments that provide immediate, measurable, positive impact for the surrounding communities? Ultimately, I'm asking if you support a public camping ban.
Well, this is important because I'm going to sound kind of lawyerly for a minute, but I take a lot of effort to make sure I talk in a way that is understandable for non-lawyers, because we've made our legal landscape very complicated in America if you don't have a legal education, sadly. There was a case started out of Boise, Idaho, and then a second case out of Grants Pass, Oregon, that really was holding the whole West Coast hostage by judge-made law that basically said you can't move people unless you had a bed per head, is how I shorthanded the policy. So they were saying you can't clear an encampment unless you have a bed for every person that's in that encampment area. So I helped write an amicus brief because that case was overturned by a US Supreme Court. And so that is now not judge-made law that is confining policy decision makers as to what to do. When you're thinking about what we should do with people that are needing housing, again, I highlight that I worked in a refugee camp, and what came to me is that people were living in less humane and hygienic conditions here along the roadways of Seattle than I saw them on a border of Cambodia with people who were fleeing civil war. We cannot leave people left alongside the roadways. It's teaching my children's generation that if you can organize yourself, you just walk past them and ignore them. And if you can't, then sadly you might become one of them. And that is not a way that I want our society to go, is to think that there's two sets of laws or two sets of people, and one who can take care of themselves and one who can't, and we just leave them. But we also need to make sure that the environment cannot speak for itself. There's degradation of the environment, the toxins that are going in from the drugs that are going into our earth. It is a significant piece. I'm not in that policy space at the city attorney's office, but I can help craft legislation, and I think it's an important piece for people to understand the role that I can bring for that, with the nuance and the understanding I have. Since I have been leading the law department for the last 3.5 years for our city, I'm the only one in the race who has this experience in actually drafting legislation for our city.
Thank you. What are some
some of the most important civil cases that we face right now?
I think for me, I wanted to highlight, I talked about the Kia Hyundai one, but I want to highlight two other ones that you may not have been aware of. Because a lot of what I talk about when I'm out is the public safety space, because as the misdemeanor and gross misdemeanor prosecutor for the city of Seattle, it's the space that I can freely talk about for policy. On the other policies, like we just talked about with homelessness, I try to stay very clear and stay in my lane. And if other electeds want to know my opinion, I'm happy to talk with them about it, but I don't put in my preferred policies into what would be the law or advice, because that's not the role that this is supposed to take, in my opinion. And so for civil cases, this is where I get to be, kind of make sure I am taking effort. So again, I'm looking at public safety strategies that I can enhance from the civil side. So it's not just a criminal prosecution side. So it is the Kia Hyundai. I was the first in the country to sue them. 15 other governmental entities have joined that, because again, we're just wanting them to put the anti-theft technology that's almost universal in every other car into their least expensive cars. They put them out on the market knowing they were highly susceptible to being stolen, and they were, because we all heard about all the TikTok things. The second one is Glock. I have just recently sued the firearms maker Glock, only Glock, because it's the same type of legal theory. Their firearm is very susceptible to being added to what is called a switch or an autosear, and it makes it from a semi-automatic gun to a fully automatic gun. And we need to be concerned. This is why we have incidents with 90 shots fired, 60 shots fired, and it's only like 3 seconds. We are asking our officers to go out in harm's way, to spend so much time investigating 80 shots fired, and it's because people are getting the Glocks, putting on the switch, switching it to a fully automatic weapon, and can shoot 90 rounds in 2 seconds. That is scary and harmful, and we need everybody to come to the table to help reduce that. It cannot just be that our police are there trying to get the little pieces of plastic, so I have sued them because I need them to come. I think it's a nuisance. And the third one I'll highlight for you, which is totally different, is Monsanto is a company that dumped toxic chemicals into our lower Duwamish. I personally went to do that mediation in Washington, D.C., and I brought us home to the city of Seattle $160 million for that case. As a comparison, maybe Washington State got $95 million. So I made sure I brought us home the money to help take care of our river that's here in our city.
I got a quick question for you,
Yes.
real quick. So, this here thing you're doing about gun control and all these things, you're a Republican, you're not supposed to be thinking like that, right?
Let the audience give their response to you first. I'm going to really emphasize, I have never run this office in any kind of partisan way. I'll highlight I was endorsed in 2021 and again am endorsed for re-election by former Democratic Governors Gregoire and Locke. I'm endorsed by current Representative Adam Smith. What I'm talking about is smart strategies that will help improve public safety. And I want to support our officers, which is again why I go out and know their work. That's why they endorse me and back me. They want me to be their lawyer and their prosecutor for the work that they're doing. But it cannot just be simply on their backs.
So you're saying that
it's not a Second Amendment
regardless of our differences, we do
even,
have things in common.
Absolutely. This has nothing to do with the Second Amendment. That is there under our Constitution. I'm saying that only their firearm, the way they have it designed, it is adding to what I believe is a public nuisance, which it is so easy, and sadly so easy by juveniles, to be changed from a semi-automatic to a fully automatic. And we should be concerned because we want kiddos to not be going into that direction, and we need them to come and be a part of that.
One more, just a quick answer. If re-elected in 5 years, what are we celebrating? What have you accomplished in 5 years?
It's a 4-year term.
I know, but
I was like, what would I be doing the year after?
We know it's not going to happen overnight. So, like, if you could, for Seattle, in 5 years, what can you look at and go, you know what? I'm really glad we worked on that and we were successful.
I do want us to have less visible drug use in our city because it really is a witness that we have had bad policy in that space for so long. And it will take us that at least half that long, if not as long as to get out from underneath that. It is a complicated space. When I heard earlier there was some conversation about mental illness and people want to talk about the issue there and mandating treatment. That is a larger issue at our state law level, and it's complicated, and it is in my space where I have a lot of concern. And that is a long-term issue that I will absolutely work on, continues through my second term.
Thank you, Ann.
Okay, we have 10 minutes for a couple audience questions.
A lot of discussion about drug use and rehabilitation. I want to focus on the drug dealers because I live in Belltown. Why can I openly see drug dealers on the street selling and no repercussions for anything? No police action, nothing.
One, I don't direct the police, so it's important that you make sure you have your mayor know that you want that. Second, my position does not do felony prosecution. That's at the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. So I would be only getting the use and possession cases. I do work, like I said, partnering with the High Utilizer Initiative with the King County Prosecutor, but we're often not in that space. I'm dealing with criminal activity that is where we have several referrals. A lot of times they might be those individuals, but that's just not my authority. I cannot prosecute felonies. I only prosecute misdemeanor and gross misdemeanor. So that's, but I'm with you on the concern. At least if we do it with if we disrupt the customer base, then there'll be less dealers. That's what I'm trying to focus on with the use of possession and the soda law. If we disrupt the market, because right now with fentanyl, as we do know, probably most people in this space know here, it's about a hit every 15 minutes compared to the old use of heroin, which was the drug on the street, was like a 12-hour hit. So the dealers just go up and down where their markets are because people need to buy it sadly every few minutes. So if we can disrupt the market, the dealers will be there.
Isn't this the root cause of the problem? Why aren't we attacking the root cause?
I agree with you, but I'm saying I'm not the prosecutor for that, is all I'm saying, so I cannot.
So who do we?
It's the King County Prosecutor.
Okay, so Ann, I'm gonna hand the mic over, but because tents and parks are the #1 concern of so many people in this room, would it be helpful if we stopped calling them encampments or homeless encampments and calling them what they are, which are drug scenes and drug markets, so that you could craft that legislation? Is that something you can do if you're reelected?
I will absolutely partner with anybody, and I can freely propose legislation myself, which I have done on a number of the issues I brought forward. I brought forward the civil action for graffiti because I don't want to I want to do prosecution when I can, but if police don't on-view the graffiti, I want another way to hold those taggers responsible. They can paint it, have it cleaned up, or clean it up themselves, but you know, the answer is, or the easy answer is don't do it, but you know, if you're going to do it, we're going to make you pay for it. So I absolutely can, and again, that's why that I worked hard to make sure that that Grants Pass case was overturned to free the West Coast from that policy. Now, if it's there, it's because your policymakers have decided it, because they are not held by judge-made law that they cannot do so anymore.
Hello, my name is Quentin. I think the most important thing to have in any battle that you're in the midst of is intel. So my question to you is, what is the biggest hurdle that you face in everything that you're trying to achieve and overcome?
Well, thank you for your thoughtful question. Well, I mean, I'll give you on a personal basis time. I mean, I really wish I didn't have to sleep most of the time because, and I mean, I'm not being facetious, but it sounds like I am. But when I did that ride along a couple of Friday nights ago, I told my kids I'd be home at 8 because it was in honor of Washington State Trooper Gadd, who was killed in the line of duty. He was stopping one more stop, he said, to do one more DUI. And he was on the side of our roadways and was killed by another impaired driver. And so that DUI emphasis was in honor of him. And so I went for that joint roll call for that. There was Washington State troopers, some Tukwila, King County sheriffs, and our Seattle police officers. And so it was at 6 p.m. and I told my kids, I'll be home by 8. And I could not go because I really wanted to see what are they having to contend with when the bars shut down at 2 and they're trying to help make our roadways safe. So I stayed out till 3 and then had to pay the price the next day because I didn't have a lot of sleep. But it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to understand what are we asking people to do when they serve in the occupations like that. It's the right thing for me to do to go out with people like Andrea who goes and helps clean up places. It's the right thing to do because if I'm in the policy space, where can I make the most impact to make our systems work for us? I need to understand enough of it at the micro level so that I can come big picture and help craft strategies that can help get it done in the quickest way and the least costly. So it really is just, I wish I did need a lot of sleep.
My name is Dana and I'm a WAC member. Thank you so much much for being here,
Yes.
and thank you for the WAC for hosting this. Thank you for your work on the Monsanto settlement. I was wondering if your office is planning on joining the settlement with the chemical companies when it came to PFAS and waste and groundwater here in Washington. Seattle is eligible but hasn't signed in yet to get any settlement money. So I was wondering if your office has eyes on that and if there's anything you're planning on doing to join the settlement. Thank you.
What an out of the blue question, because it is people don't talk about it very much, but it is significant, and I am aware of it, and I am briefed on that, and so it is in conversation, and so I do know that that's another place where we're looking at, again, where can we be protecting our environment? When we're talking about I wanted to recenter victims in the public safety conversation, because nobody has to be a victim. Our environment cannot speak, and we're leaving it in the hands of my kids and their kids. And so when we look at where are the most vulnerable, that's a space that we don't get to hear a voice from, so we need to be focused on it as well.
Awesome. One more question, and then, yeah, 2 minutes.
Hello,
Hey,
I have a question. How can we work with your office to help curb the spike of gun violence? I know that, we hear about weekly now, and everyone's kind of concerned. And thank you for doing the lawsuit against Glock, but what can we do as Seattle residents to further tighten the laws to prevent?
I think for me, it's making sure you let your electeds, prosecutors, I would say again at the King County level, because I don't prosecute juveniles, I only do adults, misdemeanor, gross misdemeanor. And as I said earlier, sadly what we're discovering when our police officers recover firearms and their Glocks, they often have switches, and sadly many times they're juveniles. And so we really do need to be investing in a space where that is not glorified. Right? Sadly, social media has made these spaces like that. I think a lot of kiddos are coming out of a pandemic, and everyone was told to stay home, but not everybody had a safe home. And so we really do need to be focusing on what we can do to make sure that they have other alternatives in that space. I just want to kind of finish up by saying, I have a federal response team. There's concern, people know about Portland going on. Again, our police went through a really rigorous 10-year time period in the consent decree. They are really probably one of the best police departments we have in the country. And I'm making sure that they understand that I'm there as the prosecutor for when they refer things to me, what I can do, what I need from them, and showing up for them so that they understand I'm here to do the work. We don't need anybody else coming in and being our law enforcement. We have local control here that is smart and understands our local issues, and I'm part of that. And I'm making sure our system is working and talking together, again, because it's not just one of us that makes the criminal justice system work. It's many parts of it, and so that's why I'm educating people about judges, because that's the next space after me, is what does the judge do? So we are here as our own law enforcement. This is our system, this is our public safety system, and we can handle things here in Seattle. Thank you for your time, and I really appreciate your attendance today.